12:15, so I think we should go ahead and get started. Is that okay, Opal? Are we good? All right. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank God this year this class is not at 8 o'clock in the morning and we're not all hungover. This is Math is Money for Authors, so you can still escape out the back door. I'm author Elizabeth Ann West, and let's go ahead and talk. So math is actually a universal language. It's a language that spans across countries, continents. Nobody has to read English. You know, we're all using the same numbers and signs for the most part. And you are a language expert, so you got this. You can do this. However, we're only going to add, subtract, divide, and multiply. Everybody feeling better that we're only doing those 4 operations today? You're going to be equipped to make more data-driven decisions. The techniques that you'll see here, you can actually apply to a lot of different applications of your business. And I have my email there, elizabeth@futurefictionacademy.com. You can email me anytime. We'll hop on a Zoom. We'll figure it out if you need help on this. Like I make myself available to authors all the time. The life preserver will come up a couple of times. When it comes up, that is a great time that I'll pause, and it's a great time for questions. Again, please go to the middle mic here in the middle so everyone can hear you. There's no stupid question except for the one that you don't ask, okay? Y'all paid a lot of money to be at this conference. Take advantage. Okay, so about me. I accidentally became a professional writer in 2007. They paid me $7 for my first article, and I was like, I can do this. I started my career writing SEO content. I am an OG. I published my first novel in 2011. Who is class of 2011, 2010 on the KDP? Yay! There's like 2 of us. Note that math. 2014. I was a book marketer for a number of years. And then in 2014, I actually started writing in the genre that I love to read. How many of you write in the genre that you love to read in? Oh, fantastic. Reader zero. Best thing to do. So I write Jane Austen fan fiction. Yes, Mr. Darcy sells all around the world. I have sold in over 80 different countries. I've made over $275,000 with my books. In 2022, I moved more into a full-time teaching authors about writing with AI, first working with Pseudo-Write, and now I have my own school called Future Fiction Academy. So that's a little bit about me. Now we're going to talk about this line right above it. Over $275,000 earned in book sales with a 60% pre-tax profit margin. Now, how many of you have never heard of a pre-tax profit margin? Okay, I promise at the end of this presentation, you're going to be like, that's the sexiest phrase ever. So let's talk about a profit margin, shall we? Why profit margin? Because revenue is absolutely meaningless unless we talk about expenses. Let me give you a great example. I made $10,000 on my book this month. What does that tell you about how much they spent to do that? Nothing. But if somebody tells you that I made a $5,000 profit last month on my books, now I'm listening. So I want you guys to start asking questions. If someone starts giving you numbers, ask them if it's profit or ask them if it's revenue. And if they don't know, that's not the person to talk to. We look at pre-tax profit because everybody's situation, maybe you have 12 kids, I don't. Every country is different, so we want to talk about that pre-tax profitability. That way we're comparing apples to apples. $275,000. So what is 60% of $275,000? How many of you were taught that of means multiply? How many of you, your math teachers, were sleeping on the job? Exactly. I told you guys are. It might have been you sleeping on the job. This is language. We know language. We know what of means. If you see the word of, it's your cue to multiply. So if people want to multiply $275,000 times 0.6, you should get $165,000. That's money I kept over 8 years working part-time. I had an unhelpful spouse at the time. I was a military spouse, so I was moving all the time. So this was definitely a part-time job I had between 5 and 20 hours a week to work on. How many of you are writing in that kind, maybe not the crappy spouse section, but how many of you have limited time? You only have 5 to 20 hours, exactly. So am I a 6-figure author? No, I've never made 6 figures in a year on my books. I'm okay with that. I have other sources of income. I have other priorities in my life. I'm what you call a mighty mid-lister, and I like to share my story because I think it's a little bit more approachable for a lot of people in the scenarios that they have going for them. So per year, so that's 8 years. So if of means multiply, we need an opposite word, right? So per is the opposite of. If you see per, it means divide. So per year, You divide that $165,000 by 8 years, and you see $20,625. I love a part-time job that I can be in my pajama pants and make 20 grand a year, right? Yeah, not shabby. Okay, so those are not sexy numbers, and I know I'm a boring mid-lister, but you know what? I never got on the book a month train. I have 25 books in the Kindle store, and I'm really happy where I am. And I want to encourage all of you, you can be happy with where you are in your journey, because it doesn't ever end until you decide it ends. You're still always on that journey. Okay, so little bit of a kind of a misnomer here, but who made more money, 200,000 or 60,000? Do we know? No, exactly. This just reinforces that point. A lot of times in author groups, we throw around numbers of I made X dollars, but what they're really talking about is revenue. They're talking about gross revenue. So here's an example just to kind of like put this at home. And again, I'm not saying that all authors at 200,000 and all authors at 60,000 are this. It's just kind of an example. So advertising, I was imagining here, how many of you have heard from a six-figure author that they spend 5 figures a month in ads? So that, yeah, very common. And then for both authors, I put $2,000 per book between editing and book cover and launch. This presentation was made a few years ago. Now with Midjourney and AI and different things, you can definitely, my first book I published for $400. That was my outlay. How many of you spend a lot less than $2,000 per book? Please, everyone raise your hand. Okay. But maybe those production costs also include like marketing, or well, that would go in advertising. And so I just showed the example here that it's very easy for two authors who have a very different revenue numbers. 200,000 and 60,000 aren't close at all, but it's actually very possible if they start deducting all of their expenses and how they're running their business, their actual profitability at the end of the day is pretty close. Any questions? Any life preserver moments? Okay, so what's the point? Well, if we start talking to ourselves about pre-tax profit margins, we can start to understand potential in our business. Would I like to make $200,000 in my business? Sure. Do I want to spend $150,000 to do it? No. For me personally, that's too high of a risk. I've been in the industry for long enough to see things like people are up, people are down. There's a lot of people who were top 10 Amazon authors in 2011, 2014. They're not at this conference. They're not writing anymore. They're not here anymore. So I hate to say what goes up must go down, but honestly, once you reach the top, what other direction is there to go unless you're staying hard on it? So the other thing I put here is about something goes wrong. I know about a third of you are working on your first book, a third few books. How many of you have had a book launch not go as planned? Yeah. I had a book, I had spent months on it. I was really excited for it. And like the day I clicked the button and it's like going live, the Uvalde shooting happened. And for about a week, so I have family who's down there, so nobody was injured or anything, but it was like a week. I didn't want to promote my book. I was just like a puddle of tears with the rest of the country. These things can happen. COVID happened, and that disrupted a lot of things. So this is why for me personally, I prefer my businesses to run with a little bit more pre-tax profit margin than 28%. 28% doesn't leave me a lot of room for bad things to happen. Any questions? We good? Okay. So, and again, I kind of already went over this. One thing I wanted to say here is, please do not treat your credit card statement like it's capital. It is not capital. How many of you have been in groups and you hear people say, it's fine, I just maxed out my credit cards in order to promote my books? Yeah, that's not safe. Please don't do that. So publishing changes and understanding how to monitor it is key. If we don't have any questions, or Opal, any questions from the, nope, okay, good. Oh, I cheated. I meant to ask the question. So, is 50% cost on ads good? So, let's ask the question. Let's see. If I'm making double my money on ads, is that good? How many have you thought it was good, or that's what it's talked about in groups? How many of you heard in groups, like, as long as you're doubling your money, you're fine, right? Yeah, double your money. Well, let's look at this. So ad spend month one, we're just doing some examples. This is just called, all this is doing is when you just plop numbers in, what you're just doing is you're just doing an example. You're just kind of like my mind is blanking on them. It's like a model. It's just a math model. It's kind of like a draft, like a first draft. So ad spend, how many of you heard of a $1,000 ad spend in a month from authors, right? And then they make $2,000 from that royalties earned, right? We're doubling our money here in this scenario. How many royalties did we get paid from Amazon that month? 0, right? Because there's a 60-day wait on your royalties. So you're walking away in month 1 negative $1,000. Month 2 rolls around. I'm going to keep that ad spend going, $1,000, make another $2,000. How much do I have in my pocket? Still nothing. And now I'm negative $2,000. Month 3 happens. Okay, finally, this is going to be the month, right? I'm going to spend that $1,000. I'm going to make $2,000, and I finally get paid month 1's royalties. I am still negative $1,000. And at this point, for many of us, this is 90 days. This is where your spouse or your friends or somebody who you trust are going like, are you making any money on this? You've talked about this, but are you making any money on this? And then month 4 is when you finally break even in this particular model. Any questions? Did anyone know that you would work for 4 months for free if you were just making double your money on ads? Okay, this was the not fun part. I told you it was going to be not fun at the beginning, and then it gets fun. Everybody okay? All right. So let's be honest. What usually happens when authors see a 2x on their ads? What does everybody do when they see double their money on ads? Spend more, and we're going to look at a model for that as well. And anyone going, because I sometimes have skeptics in these things, but Elizabeth, months 5 through 12, I'll be at a profit. If you assumed everything stayed the same, which does not actually happen in Kindle land, by the way, I've been in this business for a decade. I don't have a single month that's had the same royalties as a previous month. Anyone else with a lot of experience, have you ever had the same months over and over again, revenue-wise? No, it goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. Amazon borks your keywords, Amazon delists you, like things just happen. But if it all stayed the same, you'd have 12 months of $1,000 in spending for negative $12,000. You would have 10 months of $2,000 in royalties, which is $20,000 in your pocket because you have that 2-month wait period. And so your pre-tax profit margin, that PTPM, would be $8,000 divided by 20,000. You would only be keeping 40% of your money. And we're only paying for ads here. In that $8,000, that has to pay for your covers, your editing, your website, your conferences. This is how authors find themselves at the end of the year with nothing to show for all of their hard work. So, okay. Any questions before we move on? It gets better. I promise it gets better. Yes. Could you go to the microphone? Thank you.
Do you have a rule of thumb for what a good pre-tax profit margin is?
Yes, so we're going to be talking about profit first, and the way I do it is 50% of every dollar that my businesses make go into my salary. That's what I do. So it's 30% goes towards expenses, 15% is kept for tax purposes in the U.S., and we're going to get to this in the slides, and 50% is your salary, and that extra 5% is your profit, and we'll talk all about that. Okay. So this is also kind of a Debbie Downer. I feel bad. I feel like I'm punching people as they're already down. But I actually see that this is what really happens. And we talked about this a little bit already, so I'll probably just skip over this a little bit. Oh, yes, we have a question.
Okay, so the virtual audience, don't forget, is about a minute behind us.
Oh, sure.
There's a lot of confusion about kind of some of the math that you did. And so one person asked, please describe that formula of how you arrived at that 40% figure. What divided by what equals PTPM?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So we'll go back to the slide right here. So the pre-tax profit margin, so in the United States at least, you don't pay taxes on the money you spend for expenses, right? And I think that's the case for most countries. So that $12,000 I spent in ad spending, I don't pay taxes on that. It's also money that's gone. It's not in I spent it. I brought in $20,000 by getting $2,000 in royalties paid for 10 months. This is extending that out for an entire year. So my actual profitability is only $8,000. Does everyone understand 20,000 minus 12,000 is 8,000? And then when I divide the 8,000 by 20,000, it means I had a pot of $20,000. 12,000 of it went away, and I'm only left with 8,000. So what percentage of that pot do I have left? And it's actually 40%. Does that help? Plus I got to do like the pot. Yeah. Math is hard. Use a calculator. But yeah, so we have that per thing. So it's 8,000 divided by 20,000. Let me know if they have any more questions, Opal. Thanks. All right, so this is a very sad story that I've seen too many times, and it almost makes me cry every time I talk about it. But it's the idea of like spending more money. I doubled my money, so I just need to spend more money. And that thing of like, I'm playing a long game. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And I did make more money than I spent in ads. I bet it'll work out. And then they talk to themselves in like month 3. I think so-and-so said that they spent 10,000, so I just need to up it. And a lot of times these people disappear. A big thing that I want to harp on is that people who fail at this, we don't hear about them. We only hear the stories of massive success. It is a big bias that's in our groups. So it's really important to kind of note who's working on things, and then you see them kind of disappear. Okay, we're not going to harp on that. We're going to skip through. Okay, so the do not despair. We just went through one metric analysis, 60% pre-tax profit margin is on $275,000. And we looked at 2 hypothetical business models about understanding pre-tax profit margins and how cost percentages work with cash flow. There's the business jargon of what we just did. So was everyone able to kind of follow along with what we were doing and what we were looking at? Okay, so those are the scary vocabulary words, but you already know all this now. So I think we did a life preserver just a second ago, but anyone else have any questions? All right, sunshine. Here's the good news. And we're right at where I wanted to be. Have you ever wondered how much you should be spending on expenses? Well, now that you've seen how expenses can run your business into the negative in the blink of an eye, what is the solution? Well, I was lucky, okay? I found this book in 2017. Those of you who know Sarah Cannon, she and I had the same business coach back in 2017, and that program that we did together showed us this book, Profit First. So he has a few rules, and it's a great book to read. And, I'm pressing the wrong button. So here are the rules. Pay your profit first, hence the name of the book. So the first 5% of everything you make is set aside for quarterly bonuses for you, the business owner. If you owe debt, he does say 4% of that. The 4% goes to accelerating your business debt, paying that off. But he does say keep 1% for bonuses. This is a hard gig to do. It's a solo sport. There's not a lot of gold stars. Having that little 1% or 5% in your account, on $100, that's $5. $5 every 3 months, that's $15. Can you treat yourself to a cup of coffee for $15? Yes. So that's what that is about. It's about, most of us are hardwired for the cookie. It's okay to be hardwired for the cookie. The hard part is no one's going to give you that cookie. You have to give yourself the cookie. Expenses should be about 30% of revenue. Now, here's a big thing about this. A lot of times, early business owners, what they try to do when they realize that they're in trouble is the first thing they do is cut expenses. That's actually not a way to save a business in most cases. It's like a fire. If you starve a fire of fuel or oxygen, you're not going to have a fire anymore. So if you cut your expenses too low, your business isn't going to actually operate. The only way to save a business is to increase the revenue. Brainstorm ways to increase the revenue. Personally, I don't spend more than 1/3 of revenue on advertising. What I usually do is 10% to advertising and 20% to other costs. Those other costs do include things like this conference. That 30% is where those kinds of expenses would come into. So again, I'm US based. In the US, most cases, you need 15% set aside for taxes. And if anyone's like, but Elizabeth, 15.8% is your Medicare and your FICA and your da-da-da-da-da. Okay, I get it. You're not gonna be paying taxes, hopefully, on the 30% you spent on expenses. So the reason it's 15% is because you're only gonna be paying taxes on the 70% of revenue that your business makes. I can repeat that again for anyone confused about that. If you make $10,000 and 30% went to expenses, that would be $3,000. Those would be tax deductible, meaning they're expenses you do not pay taxes on. You would only pay taxes on the $7,000 that you kept as profit. Does that make sense? Good? And then finally, your salary is 50% of revenue. If you follow this methodology, you will stay profitable. If you follow this methodology, you're gonna have to make some hard decisions. You're going to have to start going, do I have time or do I have money? because you can only solve problems usually one of those two ways. If you don't have the money for something, that's when you learn to DIY. That's when you start figuring out if you can trade with someone and things like that. It just gives you a framework to make better decisions. We're all good? Okay. I'm like looking at everyone's faces and I'm like, oh. All right, profit first models. Let's take a look at what this looks like. So for the $200,000 a year author, they get to keep $100,000 as salary. On top of that, they have $60,000 a year to play for expenses. And those expenses can include, I mean, hopefully the IRS doesn't come after me, but like trips to Vegas for the conferences and things like that. You can marry your business to your lifestyle. That's actually that's really what a lot of authors do. If you're making $60,000 a year as an author, that's about $5,000 a month. Now you're looking at $18,000 a year in expenses, and you're still taking home a salary of $30,000. That could be very tight to try to support yourself, but there are still places in the world that you can. You may be looking at, you need supplemental income. And even those $15,000 a year authors and $5,000 a year authors, that salary number is nothing to boo about. Looking at the next slide, I divided these by 12 so you could see what the take home for the month is. So you can see it. And remember, for the $200,000 author, $8,333, your taxes were paid. That 15% that you set aside and you just kept sending to the tax people, you should be pretty good tax-wise there. And then all the way down to our $5,000 a year author, okay? $200 a month. How many of you have a monthly budget that $200 extra a month would make a difference? Yeah, so there is none of these are better than the other. These are all working authors and they have mad respect from me. Okay, so how do you do this? Do we have any questions so far? Or again, okay, make a forecast. Oh, yes, please come to the microphone. And thank you for asking a question.
Is this more directed as the sole proprietor right now, or can it be extrapolated to like a S corp?
It can be extrapolated to an S corp. Typically, you don't want to make an S corp until you're making more than $250,000 a year in revenue. I mean, there's not really big tax brackets there, tax benefits there. The book talks about other income levels higher than $250,000. Your percentages might morph and change a little bit. You may have to put more money away for taxes, for example, as you go up because you're going up in a higher tax bracket. I knew there would be a question. That's why I was like pausing. I was like, I know they're going to have questions.
Okay, this goes back, I think, a couple of slides.
Yeah.
Someone's just having a little bit of trouble with the math.
Yeah.
So he was asking, set aside 15% of what for taxes? Gross revenue
Yes.
or revenue after expenses?
Gross revenue.
That's what we thought, okay.
Gross revenue. And it's weird. It is weird. You're going like, that doesn't seem like enough money. But it is because it's gross, it's off of gross revenue, and you're not going to be paying taxes on the money for your expenses. If they're bona fide expenses, please, for the love of Job, do not pay expenses on them or pay taxes on them. Yes, you have another question. Fantastic.
So, I'm sorry, I'm a
You're-
little unclear.
You're great.
So if you're, so advertising is 10% of your revenue.
Revenue.
Okay, but you start from zero, which unfortunately I had to go back and do that this year.
Organic
10% of
marketing.
nothing is nothing.
Organic marketing. My career began with tweets on Twitter, and I would have out of every 10 tweets, 2 would be a link, 4 would be chatty tweets, and 2 would ask a question. You can literally start with nothing. That's a different presentation. Maybe I'll teach that next year. But that is how I treat all of it. If you position your book correctly in Amazon, and I say this as someone who has coached and taught a lot of authors over the year, and we've seen this in the Future Fiction Academy. If you actually package your book correctly, good keywords, good look inside, right cover, before you even get the link, you'll have a couple of sales. Has anyone experienced that? Like you have a couple of, exactly. Amazon is brilliant at selling books. They take 30% for the privilege of doing so. Make them earn their 30%. Make them sell your book. So you can build from nothing. It's not easy, but you can do it. And many of us have done it, so talk to us after. Fantastic questions, everyone. I wish I brought candy. Y'all have earned gold stars. How are we? Oh, we're doing great on time. Oh, wait, we were on that. We were on that slide. Sorry about that. So, how do we do this, right? That's the how. We understood the what we're trying to do, and that's profitability. So let's see how we do this. We're going to make a forecast. Even on my first book, before I made any money, I planned the investment of cash, $414, and knew how many sales I needed to make that year back. I was actually at the price point of $2.99, which is like $2.02, so we'll just make it $2. So I knew I had to sell 207 books. Yeah, 207 books is what I had to sell. So I divided that by 12, so I could figure out what my monthly quota was, and then I was tweeting and Facebook, and this was back in 2011. All right, track your data. Spreadsheets are a tool. There's also Scribe Count out there. There's Book Report. KDP has good reports now too, but you just want to look for a tool out there that will help you track your data. I personally like to use spreadsheets still to this day. I've used Scribe Count, they're fantastic. I've used Get Book Report, they're great. They're only KDP based, Kindle based, and there's a couple of other companies out there as well. Now, this is the step that I think a lot of authors kind of skip because it's not comfortable. If you're feeling discomfort in this class, this next step, not comfortable at all. Evaluate regularly. How many of you have really taken a look at like what's working in your business and what's not? Oh, I love you. I'm so proud of you. How many of you have avoided that like the plague? Yeah, we'll work on it. We're together. It's all good. So, monthly, quarterly minimum is what I would say for people. Have a meeting with yourself once a month. Have a big meeting with yourself once per quarter. Oh, we have a question.
Cole asks, if you're new and you have no data, what do you forecast without any data about coming revenue?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you have no data at all, you basically decide what you're going to do. A forecast is just a flag. And literally it's a binary situation of like you're either going to fall short of the flag and look at why you fell short of the flag, or you're going to exceed the flag. There's no punishment or penalty for where the flag is. So if I was really doing my first book and coaching people on the first book, I would be like, can you tweet and share and try to sell 10 books a month? You know, tweet and share and interact with readers and everything like that. Does 10 books a month sound too hard if you were actually striving for it, if you were actually having to make a plan to go for it? No? And what's 10 times 12, everyone? 120. And 120 times $2.99. Well, please, are we doing $3.99 at least now? $3.99, which is $2.70. Yeah, inflation, exactly. So you start doing the math, and then you start realizing this is not a game where you're going to make a fortune on one book. How many of you have realized all of that? Yeah. My friend back there, I'm going to call him out, Nathan. He's written over 740 books since 2013. Yeah, that's literally what it takes for a lot of us. You don't have to do that. You don't have to match that. I have 25 books. there's a big spread there. But the point is that the days of I'm going to publish my magnus opus and become a millionaire, I don't think those days ever really existed, honestly. So a lot of those are big myths. Okay, so again, if you are just starting out, just pick a number. Start with 5. Start with 3, whatever it is. If you're motivated by, I hit the goal, and then I surpass the goal, then you just increase it each time. If you are somebody who's motivated by not hitting the goal but striving hard, then do that. You know yourself better than I do. Find joy. Miserable people make bad decisions. How many of you have some other friends that are like misery loves company? Yeah, we're not going to say their names. Indie publishing is a solo performance art, and so you want to use data to tell yourself a story and adjust if that story doesn't match your values. Okay. So we're going to get into a forecast now. A forecast can be as simple or as complicated as you want. So this is a very simple 5 books at $500 a year. Or each of them are making $41 per month. For those of you who are in Kindle Unlimited, does $41 a month for a book, an old backlist book, sound like a really high number? No. Once you start building the career, these kinds of things just kind of happen. So I put $2,500 for that. That's 5 times 500. Everybody good with the first line? Okay. Front list revenue. Let's say this author's deciding to write 3 books in a year, and they're planning on 400 sales in that entire year for those books because they're front list books. This is somebody who has a little bit of a career. They're now getting to 8 books published. And at $2.70 royalty, you'll see I put it at $3.99. That's the $3.99 price point. $2.70 is what we make from Amazon. That's another $3,240. Everybody checking my math with your calculator? You absolutely can. And then I went ahead and threw in here monthly expenses of $200 a month, which is $2,400. And so their pre-tax profit is $3,340, and the pre-tax profit margin would be 58%. $3,340 of the $5,740. And so you see with that 58%, they're actually able to pay themselves a good bit of money of that. because they've already covered their expenses and now they just need to pay for their taxes. Any questions on this simple forecast? Has anyone been allergic to business forecasts in the past? Yeah, you can do it on a napkin. I mean, there's no wrong or right way to do this other than make a plan and then like revisit it. See how you did. That's it. It's a game you make for yourself. Complicated. I asked you if you guys like spreadsheets. This is an example of a revenue plan a forecast plan I threw together for 2022 to 2023. I'll tell you right now, this did not happen. I'm still working on Moralities of Marriage number 6 because artificial intelligence, I was already using it from 2021 to 2022. In November of 2022, last year after Vegas, many of you will know ChatGPT dropped and the whole world changed. Yeah, and I was one of those people that I realized I could step into the gap and teach people how to use AI, so I prioritized that this past year. Also, I got a lot of hate for being AI, so I decided maybe take a year off from publishing books, Elizabeth. But I still have 1-star reviews on my, they put 1-star reviews on my books from 2014. This author uses AI, and I'm like, really? It wasn't, like, look at the date. It wasn't even there then. So this is just an example, though, that you can do. So you'll see I have a production month, and I also have a paid month. So does everyone see column A and column E? And I can zoom in a little bit so that people can see. See how I have a paid month versus a production month? How many of you are doing that in your forecasting? Yes, I love it, I love it. How many of you are gonna start doing that? Yeah, right? You have to keep track of like, when is this money gonna hit your bank account? That's cash flow. Okay, I'm seeing we're red here. All right, and you'll see that I'll put like big things like NINC and everything like that. All right, so for mine, it is a living document, so I use tabs. So I'm showing an example at the top there, forecast fiscal year 2023, and then maybe January, maybe I get COVID, maybe I get sick. I just move everything down. That's all I have to do. I just change the dates. It's a living document. I'm the boss. You're the boss. If you have something happen, you can change your business plans. Okay, so last little bit here, evaluating metrics. I think we're almost there here. Garbage in, garbage out. When you look at metrics like click rate. Oh, we have a question.
Going back, the question was, what do you mean by a paid month versus a production month?
Oh, yes. So production month for me would be when something is releasing, or maybe it's when I'm writing it. Those can sometimes be the same month. Production month would be like that book publishes in November of 2022. I would expect to get paid January of 2023 because we have the 60-day wait. So even if you publish in November, at the end of November, you won't get those royalties paid out until the end of January of the next year. We are already in the next fiscal year, by the way. Our earnings right now on Amazon, if you are United States, you're already in the next fiscal year. Okay, garbage in, garbage out. How many of you guys have seen people talking about read-throughs and customer lifetime values and things like that? Those are all great evaluation and great metrics. What I suggest you do is make sure you check your data, make sure it makes sense. For example, my read-through from book 2 divided by book 1 is rubbish, but that's because book 1 has been free. So if you have how many of you have first and free series? Yeah. Are you calculating that read-through between book 1 and book 2? No, not unless you want to cry. Look at book 3 to book 4, or book 4 to book 5. And by the way, it should go down, okay? People have lives, it's not necessarily you. How many of you have your favorite series and you haven't finished it yet from an author that you love to read? Yeah, readers are just like us. I also think it's helpful to define your measure of success. So before you design a metric, such as a daily word count goal to make a deadline, decide what is success. Are you looking to be consistent? Do you need to hit a benchmark? Will you just need to hit the average for the week? For me, I like an average of the week over a month. I like a monthly word count goal. A daily word count goal makes me feel like a failure because I can't hit it. How many of you have a daily word count goal? How many of you hate daily word count goals? Yeah. So see, I do these things because I want you all to see that you're not doing it wrong. You're just doing it your way. And Frank Sinatra has a great song about that, and we're in Vegas. Cutting expenses, we talked about this. You cannot cut yourself profitable. I wish you could. The only way to be better, more profit is more money, and more money is more revenue. And then finally, the one-day meeting with yourself. I make this as fun as possible, so if you need pretty pink sticky notes, I'm not saying y'all do, but I do, you can make this a more fun meeting and really sit down with your numbers. A lot of us in the Future Fiction Academy, we have we have like an extracurricular in that group that's called Club Stratemeyer. And we meet twice a month. So get a group of author friends that you can meet with twice a month or once a month, and talk about your business goals and everything like that, and understand you're running your own races, but you can give yourselves accountability for that. How many of you talk about your books with an author friend? How many of you talk about your business goals with an author friend? How many of you are going to start talking about your business goals with other friends? Yes, yes, yes. All right, so madness is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Making money off of stuff that was just in my head. I love that. I love that my job, like when people ask me what I do for a living, I'm like, I make stuff up for a living, and I'm not a lawyer. Loving what I do so much, half of my life's expenses are tax deductible. Anyone have that? Yeah. Ignoring your money and just hoping it's all going to work out in the end. I've done that before. It does not. It ends in tears. And then finally I had this little kind of quote of, but I don't want to go among mad people, Alice remarked. Oh, you can't help that, said the cat. We're all mad here. I'm mad, you're mad. So we're not quite done. I have additional resources. I've got 9 minutes left, so we're good. Facebook group, we have AI Writing for Authors. That's a Facebook group. I'm an admin with Steph Pajonas. We talk business and AI there all the time. YouTube channel. I love this man named Struthless. He has a great channel. He's actually a graphic designer, but for mindset and planning and things like that, he's really cool to follow. We also have my own personal YouTube channel is the Future Fiction Academy. We mostly focus on writing with artificial intelligence, but we have lots of different applications there with marketing and all things. How do you work best? Anyone take any classes with Becca Sign? Yeah. If you ever have anxiety about, am I doing it right? Becca and Terry are your people, because they'll help you see what your strengths are and see that you're just fine. You're just you. Need to learn something. Trick that I do. Look at your local college class on the subject and just buy the textbook and just read it. That's how I learned marketing. That's how, has anyone done that before? Just you buy the textbook? Yeah, right? We forget that we can do that. And then if you need to reach me, I'm Elizabeth@futurefictionacademy.com. So if we don't have more questions, I'm happy to bounce over to the bonus section here of ChatGPT. Yes, we good? Okay. So I did this prompt in 3.5 first. I'm going to zoom up here a little bit. How many of you hate to create a publishing plan? How many of you have never created a publishing plan before? Okay, so ChatGPT has you covered. So this is my prompt. Create for me a publishing plan and marketing plan to release 6 novels in 1 year. The first book will release in January of 2024, and I will begin writing in November 2023. Lies, I'm not doing that, but okay. I take 4 weeks to write a novel and 2 weeks to edit. Please make a detailed schedule of all tasks and call the novels Novel 1, Novel 2, etc. Is there any part of that prompt that has confusion for anyone? Okay, and I taught this yesterday. This is the do, what, how. Do, create for me a publishing plan. What, the publishing plan, marketing plan. How, I told him how I want, the dates and everything like that, and that I want it labeled Novel 1, Novel 2. Now, my custom instructions call me Goddess Divine. That's an inside joke. So it says, of course, Goddess Divine. Here is a detailed publishing and marketing plan to release 6 novels in 1 year, starting with the first book releasing in January of 2024. Given your writing and editing timeline, we'll work backward from your release date to ensure everything is on track. What a helpful little robot. You can even ask it to put motivational phrases on these things too. It can really be a great assistant. So November 2023, it does the preparation phase and says begin writing novel 1. It tells you how to do everything. I went all the way down. I said, if my target audience is Jane Austen fan fiction readers, what kinds of marketing ideas do you have? It'll give you marketing ideas here. Now this is 3.5. That's the free one. I want to show you the difference of the planning that 4 can do. Okay, so it's the exact same prompt. And look right here. Here they're saying that they're going to establish a plan that takes into account writing, editing, pre-publication activities, marketing, and post-release promotion for each novel. And so ChatGPT 4 was like, girl, you don't know what you're talking about. You asked for a publishing and a marketing plan, but I'm going to give you everything. Sometimes it's a little sassy. Publishing schedule, so it has 4 weeks per novel, 2 weeks per novel, and then pre-publication 4 weeks, and post ongoing with focused efforts in the first month after release. This is smart, right? How many of you have gone to classes to teach this stuff, right? It's all at your fingertips with ChatGPT now. So the detailed schedule this one came up with was actual dates and everything here, so similar. And then we have marketing plan, high level, and it tells me exactly what to do for each book. How many of you have done this with ChatGPT? Yeah, no, but I will. Okay, so considerations. Overlapping schedules mean you will be marketing one novel while writing another. Thank you, Captain Obvious. Adjustments may be necessary based on feedback, life events, thank you, ChatGPT, and marketing effectiveness. Continuous reader engagement is key. Consider a dedicated website or platform for updates. And then, this is really funny. It's highly recommended to have a support team. Let me just highlight this right here. Including a professional editor, cover designer, and marketing assistant to manage the ambitious release schedule. ChatGPT's never heard of indie authors. He doesn't know we do it all alone. So I did the target audience, the same thing. What was very interesting, I'm just going to jump down here. I asked it for specific messages and ideas for creatives. Now you can actually do this with DALL-E 3 as well. DALL-E 3 is built into ChatGPT 4. And so it actually gave me Instagram post ideas and Facebook banners. Discover love and propriety in a modern Regency romance. What to do on Pinterest. Was it Joanna Penn was just talking about she's using Pinterest for SEO with AI images and stuff, and here's the AI saying, hey, you should use Pinterest. It's got video content, email marketing. Now this is the big one. How many of you have heard of drip content? How many of you are not very good at it? That's me with both hands. So I said, what about drip content? Can you give me ideas for drip content? How do I use that with my mailing list of 2,000 people? What do I do? And then it tells me what drip content marketing is. It tells me that it's sending out automated scheduled content to subscribers over a period of time. It's designed to build anticipation. So then I'm using the context window. So this is all one chat. So it still knows I'm writing Jane Austen fan fiction readers. If you work outside of the context window, it may forget that. So it's important to know your context windows, which is how many tokens it can keep the thread going. So here we go, 2 months before release. Launch month, post-launch. Now, I actually liked ChatGPT 3's drip content better. Let me show you that plan. And this is why I think it's important to run these prompts in different models to see the difference. GPT-4 stayed very theoretical with my drip plan. 3.5 said, girl, here's how you do it step by step. And what I mean by that is, look at this. Welcome series, email 1, email 2, and it tells me exactly when to send it. I don't know about you, but this is a plan I can follow. GPT-4 telling me like theory things, that doesn't work for me. 3.5 can actually make you a specific plan. And 4 can too if I said, hey, yo, I want specific email ideas and all of that. What was really cool about this is I counted and it went all the way through 52 weeks. And I have actually never done this before in my life. Somebody joins my email, they're saying email number 18 should celebrate the anniversary of them joining my email list. I've never thought to do that. Has anyone else thought to do that? Oh, okay, yes, you, Nathan. But I've never even thought to thank people, and I'm like, but I love it when companies thank me. So I'm going to start adding that into my sessions, or my plans and everything. Any other questions? We have about a minute and a half left. Yes, in the back, please come up to the microphone.
Thanks for this so far. It's been really, really interesting. Is there a way that we can get the slides for this part of it?
I'm sorry, what do you want?
Is there a way that we can get the slides for this part of it afterwards?
The
ChatGPT
chats. I
slides?
think I can share the chats. I can share them in the Vegas group. Will that work? Are you in the Facebook group?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'll add the links there into the Facebook group. I have a post there, so will that work? Yeah, absolutely. 1 minute. All right, well, thank you everyone so very, very much for coming for math. All right.